Cincinnati. I oversee our executive search practice here. And I am joined today.
Sorry, a little bit of a technology delay there. Dylan Sutton, VF in Birmingham, and I'm happy to be here. We wanted to get together today and share what's working for us so far with this, work from home with kids of different ages and a working spouse situation.
Yeah, exactly. So again, today we'll be coming through the lens that we can share as our unique family situation. So I am working remote at home with my spouse, who is also working remote at home, and our 3 children. So we have twins that are in kindergarten and an almost 2-year-old in that.
Yeah, and I'm right there behind her. I've got a 5-year-old who will be 6 in July, whose kindergarten year has been interrupted, and we also have a 17-month-old little boy who is a real live animal, and we are in very similar boats. And I think that's a great point, in terms of segueing from there, because I feel like the value in this for everyone that's watching, and I don't know how many there are, and that's probably a good thing. The value in this is really what I want to share, at least, is what the value was for me when Megan first reached out to me and sort of recruited me for this. She was kind of giving me the rundown of what the idea was, and at first I was, naturally I kind of mentally pushed back and was like, I don't have time for this. But to hear her kind of explain her situation and what the intent of this was, the takeaway for me is you're not alone. And I think that's what I want to convey to everybody that is watching, is that, you're not alone. And there are a lot of us in the same boat. I think that some of the things we share today, they're not going to be profound necessarily, not earth shattering, but hopefully helpful. And certainly has been helpful for the 2 of us these past 2 weeks. So we already mentioned the ages of our children, and I realize that this is our experience, but we do want to recognize that the situation is different for those with 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds, and especially teenagers. So if that's you, this may not be all that insightful, but just know that we still have you in mind, and know that this is intended to be supportive of all. Again, that's what it's about. It's for the first time in a long time, you're not alone.
Yeah, we're all in this situation, together. That's one of the reframings that I had to do over the last 3 weeks. So Dylan and I are both in week 3, and I realize some folks, this may only be like week 1 or week 2 being remote. We're in our 3rd week of this now. So I hesitate saying new normal because I realize this is very temporary, but I do feel that it's working better every single week, and I anticipate that will be the case. And it works until it doesn't, right? And so we have great plans, and because we have small children, it works until someone's tablet breaks down in the middle of an important meeting, and you have to tend to that, And I think for the first time in a long time, blurring those lines between professional and personal it's okay, and you have to be human, and you have to accept that. But to that point, right? So we still all have jobs to do and be productive. And that has worked really well so far for me, is kind of just shifting my most productive time naturally to be when the kids aren't around, right? So I'm getting up even earlier and getting behind the computer and scheduling those calls in the very early mornings when people might still be working because they're remote too, and they don't want to disturb their day, and really just kind of pushing those core productivity hours, beginning of my day, the end of my day, and then over the lunch nap time as well. Has worked okay so far.
Incremental progress, right?
Yes.
To kind of put some numbers around that, one of the things, and a lot of this I'll share, credit to Megan, because she's been very experimental about it and writing it down and what works and what doesn't work. I mean, those of you that know me know that I'm just kind of winging it, really, for better or for worse. But I love the work schedule that you've put together in that, kind of a 6 to 9 dedicated window. Of course, you're going to have interruptions. Of course, there's going to be different things where you pull in and out of it. But to have a sort of expectation that 6 to 9 and then 10 to 2 or 12 to 2 or excuse me, 11 to 2, whatever the case may be. And then an afternoon break of sorts, because that's what the kids need. And then getting back on with something like 4 to 6. I mean, I know that when you add those up, that's really only 6 or 7 productive work hours. But if you can, I mean, honestly, and I bet if this was a group chat and everybody's space was available, there'd probably be a lot of nodding right now. If you could get 7 hours of quality work right now in this current situation we're in, I think every one of us would take that all day long. And so just having that sort of routine, right? Everyone knows toddlers thrive off routine. They basically, what I've learned so far with these two is there's 2 basic rules, right? That kind of 2 basic facts that rule the day for toddlers, and that's they have short attention spans and they get tired easily. And so I try and plan accordingly. After nap time, the whole thing starts all over again. So I think that having that structure is critical. Maybe you start with that. Maybe you go, I'm going to try 6 to 9, and 12 to 2, and then 4 to 6, and then you sort of massage it as needed. What for you and your children. But that's all Megan's idea, and I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. I didn't pay him to say that. Thank you. It helps too. I mean, I'm an early bird by nature. I realize most people are, or some people aren't, but I am very much used to waking up at 4:15 and going to the gym. So in my mind, whereas it is very tempting in this scenario to kind of relax that and sleep in, like I'm sad to say, like our family is certainly not sleeping in, and we're certainly not staying up late either, simply because we need to safeguard those productivity hours during the day. Because and I don't know, Dylan, that you mentioned it either, what your wife does, but my husband's in investments. So when the market is open, he is literally on the phone with clients from the time the market opens until the time the market closes. So certainly if there was ever an emergency or a call I had to take or needed his help, he is in the building here for me to help. But for the most part, that's also why my schedule has been built the way it has.
Right. No, that's a great point. There might be some listening right now that goes, yeah, that'll never work for me. And I can tell you, in my own personal experience, there are days that it doesn't work for me. And those oftentimes are the days that my wife has to work. Some of you know she is a nurse. She works at 2 different hospitals here in Birmingham. It's not full-time. She's not on the front line. She doesn't work in the ER. But the whole place is on lockdown, and she's absolutely one of those nurses, wearing protective gear all day, wearing a mask all day. She still has patients to take care of. And it's only 2 or 3 days a week, but on those days, I'm trying to make sure the kids are fed, make sure that they're clothed, make sure that, the dog's taken care of, trying to schedule things with clients and candidates, and, everything video and remotely and whatnot. It's just a different stress for everybody. My wife, it's something that bothers her each and every day, possibly bringing something home to us. So again, I just come back to the comfort and knowing that there are those of us who absolutely recognize the challenges in this. And that's not taking away anything from those that don't, but just know that, I see this as a sort of support group, for lack of better words. And maybe it's something to have, every so often, where we talk about, hey, or maybe there's a place to share that, where we say, hey, this is to use Scott Gordon's, this is FM. I haven't found that yet. I don't know what the FM is for an 18-month.
I think it's Disney Plus, right? If you're a parent, it's magic that you're leaning on right now. A little bit.
A little bit. And so again, I think that when we get through some more of this structure, I know we're just kind of broad strokes here, but we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that have worked and haven't worked. And then at the very end of this, I think we're going to open it up to comments. I'm not sure what the interface looks like on the other side of this, but we will see any sort of questions come through. And hopefully we do have a sort of a block of time to use here, but hopefully at the end of it, we can address some of those questions, and any we don't get to, we can answer offline.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think we're in such a unique situation, and it's not lost on me as a working mom. It's refreshing though, right? Like looking for the silver linings. Like I've started doing that a lot more. And what a blessing. Like, yeah, not ideal. My 3 children are here as I'm trying to conduct my work day, but like how cool. I get to put my baby down for the nap and I get to be the one to wake up. Like I will never have those moments again. So let's embrace what that is and be present for what they need us the most, because this is rocking their world, depending on the age, extremely profoundly. I've talked to so many clients and candidates and colleagues over the last few weeks who have those seniors, right? Those seniors in high school, or even those college students that are now back in their home. It's regardless of the age of your child, everyone is in a very unique dynamic situation, exposing ourselves more than usual and just having that sense of flexibility and pivoting when you need to just completely change your course, and know that this is temporary.
It's true. Yeah, no, I mean, you used the term the new normal earlier, and I think some people can adjust to that quicker than others. You've already mentioned this is our 3rd week, so we're 2.5 weeks into this, and I can count on one hand how many days I felt like, all right, now that was a good day. And maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I those that know me know that I don't have much of a filter. So it's a struggle to be productive, but to also not be so hard on yourself that you get down. And one thing that helps me, and I know this is no consolation to the people I'm about to talk about, but let's never lose sight of the fact that we have several clients and several more candidates who are not fortunate enough, at least not yet, to be in this situation. VACO has the infrastructure for us to work remotely or to quickly get it in place for those that didn't have it. And we're making this work, and every week gets better than the previous week. But I can tell you, having spoken to some companies that are, labeled as essential, or employees that are, it's absolutely more challenging for others. And so again, I know it's not always, I'm not trying to say, oh, well, it could be worse. That's not necessarily a great mindset either. Just know that we've got a great network of people. We've got all the way up the chain to Nashville, people that support us and know that if you need help, if you have questions, if you just want to talk, we're here. Not just Megan and I, but several others. So I recommend doing that. I was sort of down until Megan called me last week and said, hey, you want to do this? And so again, it's just, I think the interaction, getting used to this being the new normal, is hugely advantageous, and it translates to the kids as well. I'm seeing questions pop up here.
I'm excited.
We'll get to those in a second. One of the things I thought was really good that we're not necessarily doing, but Megan is, I know, you were talking about, how you're doing movies at certain times with your family and sort of dedicated screen time. I know that that's sort of we frown upon screen time in our house, but make no mistake, my daughter's on the iPad way more than she ever was before.
It's like a 9% increase, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we're the same way, like, because there was a period, and again, the lens, right? I have 2 6-year-olds, right? So my lens is only 6 years of being a mom. I realize that, but we aren't huge on TV or screen time until now. But to that point, we still are trying to reserve that. And I heard this in another group session that I was in last week. It's like really trying to reserve those as treats, right? For when you do have like a very important work situation, if the tablets are just out all the time and they're just picked up and used and whatnot, they do that magic factor. So we are still trying to keep screen time as magic. We have always been like in a situation, like Friday night pizza and movie is like our jam. My husband and I are in bed by that point. Kids look forward to it. Like it is family date night on Friday nights. And sometimes that starts at like 5:30, right? It's like bed, bathed, movie at 5:30 and we're all dying. But that
Don't be late for the 17th showing of Frozen 2.
Yes, we literally have. I know you all have too, probably, but to that point, that has not changed. So I think too, like maintaining some of the highlights of what normal feels like for you and your family unit is so important. So it is tempting again to stay up later and watch a movie together as a family, but I'm finding myself in this situation. I am so insanely drained at the end of these days that like, I want them going to bed early. And so what we've done, and then they see it as a special treat, is we are doing movie day for the big kids over lunch. So again, that's kind of how I get that window of time in the middle of the day private, because after lunch, baby goes and naps, big kids get to pick a movie. They alternate because we have to be fair. And that's been working really well too.
That's good. So I see we're right at that 15-minute mark, and I see a string of questions on here. You want to tackle some of these?
Yes.
So the first one we have come through is, have you had any funny situations happen with your kids while working from home? Any come to mind immediately? I've got one.
Go for it.
So first week of doing this, we relocated out of basically here in Alabama. Birmingham has been kind of ground zero, mainly because Jefferson County's been doing most of the testing. So we relocated just outside of town to my parents' place, kind of out of the hubbub, away from a bunch of people. We have built-in support there and things like that. And so I thought it was going to be smooth sailing. I thought I was going to be one of the fortunate ones. And I get to my folks' place, I get my little workstation set up, and we're money, right? I set up a phone call that had been, kind of established, and then it's time to do it. We did on the call. I'm talking to a VP finance of a fairly large company, and I thought I had everything set up. And then in about a 5-minute window, my daughter drops a glass on the floor. My son drops a deuce in his diaper, and our yard, like literally mid-call, the landscaper who was outside working at my folks' place had a I guess it was a blood sugar issue, and fell and collapsed at the front door of the house. So I'm talking to this VP finance, talking about a potential job order and how we're going to work through this, and I've got broken glass, poop, and having to call an ambulance. Some of that's funny, some of that's not, but that was like day 3 of working from home. Top that.
No, I don't. I can't, and I'm so thankful. And I hope the landscaper. I assume he was okay.
He was fine. We thought it was a seizure, but it was a blood sugar issue and a medication issue, so he's fine. But it was crazy.
No, yeah. The only thing that's funny is that people think I'm absolutely insane, and maybe I am. But our 2-year-old, like, we're potty training her, and people are like, "Megan, why are you doing that to yourself?" I'm like, "Why not? We're here. We're not going anywhere. She's doing really well." Like,
right?
So
why not? That's good.
Why not?
Another question I see is, what are some activities I can do with my kids to keep them busy while I work? I'm gonna let you have that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say, like, kids love just doing something new. So the other thing too, and some people just do this, and I know I have mom friends that do this normally, but like what we do after that, or that very first weekend, like leading into like knowing this was all coming, is we cleaned our play areas and we put away a boat ton of toys, right? So we basically like stripped down the playrooms, put away like 80 toys. And then we've just kind of been reintroducing things. So it's kind of like, oh, I forgot about that. Or, ooh, so it's kind of like novelty again. And then all the arts and crafts, like all the arts and crafts, like,
yeah, all of it.
Both my 6-year-olds will just like craft and like all.
And I realize that doesn't work for every kid. We're very similar. We actually had, when we moved from Texas back to Alabama, we downsized and we had a bunch of stuff in storage, and that included a ton of toys. And so it was actually my wife's idea. We went to retrieve a lot of that stuff and brought it home, and it was like Christmas in our house all over again. That kept the kids entertained, if only for 3 or 4 more hours, but it allowed us to get a few more things done. And so I know that's very specific, and not everybody has that exact situation, but you have to get creative. And the arts and crafts piece is huge. Coloring books to just, I went and bought like a stack of white printer paper, like 400 sheets of just plain white paper, so my daughter can just destroy and do whatever she wants. All sorts of stuff. And you'll find that as soon as you can, I found at least, as soon as I can mentally disconnect from whatever work-related issue I'm carrying, suddenly I care that much more about the finger paint or whatever's going on in front of me. And, that's been huge for us. And then getting outside, it's almost salt in the wound situation here in Birmingham, the past week has been some of the most amazing weather we've had this year. Like right now, it is flawless outside, and yet we're supposed to be indoors. So, getting up early and getting outside with the kids, I think everybody's doing that, but if you're not, you should do it because it's definitely helpful. They've got to get that energy out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tease too. I've just been starting like implementing recess at different parts of the day, and like my now do burpees and like they'll do jumping jacks and like they think they're doing push-ups, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm not doing burpees.
Most people probably, again, I'm a little bit on the crazy side with that, I guess. What's your biggest pro and con while working from home with kids?
I think
pro earlier. Just soaking in some of those moments that like as a working mom, like I don't get to have. I don't get to make my kids lunch every day. I don't get to do their homework. I don't get to watch them learn. Like again, I'm kind of surprised how much work girls do have that we need to get through that we're a little behind on. But like I don't normally get to be in that moment with them. So that's definitely the pro. The con is just, I'm not, admittedly, like I'm not the same I am when I'm living in the space, being a mom and a employee at the same time.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. No, it's definitely a pro to have that quality time that you're not always privy to. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, whether it's my wife's colleagues that are, working in the ERs and in the intensive care units and whatnot, that are absolute, like they would give an arm to be in our situation. They're absolutely struggling with how to find childcare, not how to manage it, So I feel very, very grateful and fortunate to be in that situation. And I know there are others that feel that way too. So I'll tackle the con, and I think it's probably pretty obvious, but it's just the sheer amount of distractions. I mentioned having a 17-month-old. He's all boy, and he's climbing on things. He's busy emptying out the cabinets. He knows how to open the refrigerator already. He's an animal, and so it's funny. I sent a meme recently to my VF team with Dolly Parton on it, and everybody knows that famous working 9 to 5. But this one said working 9 to 9:10 and 10 to 10:20 and 1 to 1:04, and it's just all this string of times, and that's ridiculously accurate. You have to. What I've had to do, I guess that's the best way I should say that. What I've had to do is start my day already knowing those are coming, already accepting of the fact that I'm going to be interrupted. I'm going to have crying. I'm going to have a dog barking. All the things that we prep our candidates to avoid, we're having to make part of life now. And so I think acceptance is the first step, and building from there. Any tips? Now, I think maybe we can do a mom side and a dad side of this, but any tips for new parents who are trying to work from home? I assume they mean like, newborns.
Yeah. So we just
5.5 years.
What's that?
I said, go back in time a few years.
Yeah, well, and I think too, you started just touching on it, the acceptance that you're going to have distractions. A word that I just keep coming back to in all of this is just the level of grace that we have to, again, we talked about it earlier as we prepared for this, for us being in a sales organization, being, we put a lot of inflicted, what is it, just expectations on ourselves, our own expectations. So just the level of grace that we need to first extend ourselves, that these situations are out of our control and everyone's doing the very best that they can. But also, that, you have to just accept too that, the people that you're working with, new situation and doing the very, very best that they can. New parents, whether you're a mom or a dad, that is on another level. Like I am saying constantly, I'm so grateful that, my 6-year-olds are semi self-sustaining, the 2-year-old not so much, but she naps 2 hours a day. Having an infant in this, like my mom heart, like, that's on another level. So I would probably recommend, I found a few different forums and groups that I've been connecting with through this to feel as a community, right? Because we can't gather as our normal circles would, and that's killing the hugging extrovert in me. But I would definitely recommend finding other working moms and really sense of community and what's working for them and what's not. Because you're right. I mean, you're here with an infant most of the day, right?
Right. I mean, again, acceptance. I feel like some of this is rehashed, but accepting the reality of the situation and yeah, it's tough it's not going to get any easier. I don't believe either. So you kind of accept it. You feel bad for your situation temporarily, and then you adapt and you overcome. Right. So that's just conversing with other parents. That's reaching out to your colleagues that may or may not be in the same boat, but still want to talk with you and still just give you that supportive voice and tone that you need, that your brain needs. And sleep. When they sleep, you should sleep. I was fortunate when we had our first. My wife was not working all the time, so that was a different scenario. But if you are at home and you've got 2 working spouses in the house and you've got a baby in the house, you got to do it in shifts. That was my experience, and you have to get rest. Like your quality of work will absolutely fall off a cliff if you're not rested and in a good state of mind. So I think focusing on mental health is mission critical. You have to be right between the ears in order to be a good dad or a good mom, and in order to be a good salesperson or a good recruiter. You have to. You absolutely have to. I don't know if that answers the question clearly enough or not, but that's the best I got.
Yeah. And then I think we're ready to wrap up, right? Is there anything else that we missed?
I think it is time to wrap. Maybe this is something that we revisit and answer any other questions that may come. I mean, again, I know that everyone right now, and I'll speak for myself, feeling overwhelmed with emails, with Teams meetings. It's all with positive intent. It's all intended to help us keep connected, stay productive. Of course, there's certain things we have to protect, but at the end of the day, just know that you have a good group of people you work with and for that are here to help, and don't go crazy.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.